Thank you. Does anyone here like bourbon whiskey? Yes. Recently, I went to Kentucky for a bourbon trail tasting and learned this amazing fact. Back in 1996, there was a terrible fire at one of the bourbon distilleries called Heaven Hill. 2% of all barrel whiskey was gone in that fire. 1996, when the fire crew arrived, they didn't even try to put out the fire. That's impossible. I mean, 90,000 barrels of alcohol are burning inside of a wooden building. So they were hosing down everything around them, the trees, the other buildings, the other structures, hosing all of that down so it wouldn't catch fire. The river of burning whiskey was coming through the property like a lava, and it sounded like a cannonade, how do you call that? Like a battle, because these barrels would drop like bombs and explode right as the building was burning down. So what a terrible! The flames were up to 350 feet up into the air. Imagine that. That's like, what is that? I think that's a football size, the football field size. Yeah, only up, right? Imagine all the neighboring, the whole town, right, is on the alert. So of course, it's a terrible disaster. And in Heaven Hill feel that the distillery itself, it lost the distilling apparatus, right, called a still, and they lost their warehouse, or their main warehouse. So they're thinking, we're out of business. We can't operate anymore. But what happens is just the opposite. Kentucky is a very warm state, and the other distillers come to rescue. They come forward and they offer, come on. All right, and they come to help. So you've got Jim Beam and you got Brown Foreman. They're offering their stills, their distilling apparatuses, like right here on the left, to distill, and then they're offering their storage space to age the whiskey, because if you don't age it, it doesn't taste all that great. Unaged whiskey is called a white dog in Kentucky. White because it's clear, and dog is because it bites. Anyway. We move on, right? So we fast forward 3 years later. It's 1999. Another distillery says, "Oh, we have this extra facility. It's not really strategically important for us. So we want to do something else. Do you want it?" So they sell to Heaven Hill a facility where there's a distilling capability and some extra storage facility. So in 4 years, so this is the timeline, right? So 1996, you have the terrible fire. Immediately, you've got competitors helping you out. In 1999, Heaven Hill buys this extra distillery. By 2000, Heaven Hill is back to 100% of their operation, to their pre-fire production. But because of the impression of scarcity in the market, suddenly bourbon is back on the map for all of us alcoholics like me, where we're like, oh, bourbon, my God, right? So for the first time in 30 years in 2000, the bourbon production is up because of the scarcity and because the distilleries came together as an industry. So great to see, right? So it's a fun story because in this story, everybody wins. I love stories when everybody wins. Heaven Hill Distillery wins because they recovered fast. Then you've got customers. Not a single order did they miss. They had enough. They diversified their warehouses so that they were able to continue to deliver. And then with the help from the competitors, they were able to restock, and they haven't missed a single commitment. The employees got to wear multiple hats. Suddenly, right, you have sort of like a time of war kind of operation. So everyone's you used to be shipping, you're no longer shipping, you're now, you're not shipping whiskey anymore, you're shipping everybody's doing multiple jobs, so they learn more skills. Then the bourbon industry altogether wins because of that scarcity impression. People buy more whiskey. Now, 60% of what you pay in a store for a bottle of whiskey is tax, right? So the Bourbon County really relies on that tax for all of their programs, social and otherwise. So Bourbon County wins because altogether people consume more bourbon. And I would even venture to say that United States or America wins because we're putting America back on the map of alcohol consumption, right? I love stories where everybody wins, but I'd like to highlight the heroes of the story, right? Perseverance at Heaven Hill. Yeah, I mean, it's an age-old story. Yeah, somebody suffers a blow. An athlete has an injury. They recover and they do even better in the next championships. I mean, we heard that story, right? But for competitors that don't have to do anything, they could just say, "Oh my God, yeah, Heaven Hill's going to be out of business. We're going to make more money," right? That's not what they do. But then everybody wins. Is that inspiring? I hope it is. So finding scenarios in business where everybody wins is the true kind of winning in business. There are too many business strategies that are based on win-loss. They're based on military schema. They're based on sports, where in order for you to win, someone else has to lose. Business is a victimless activity. In business, you can create scenarios where everybody wins. In fact, I would say that it's synonymous to making the world a better place. That's how you make the world a better place if you're a business leader. If you're exercising a win-loss scenarios and you're causing somebody to lose, then you're ultimately not making the world a better place, which is the middle column, right? And then I don't know how many of you have heard of conscious capitalism. It's a great concept that was put together in a book by John Mackey, who is the founder and a longtime CEO of Whole Foods. And winning for all stakeholders is one of 4 tenets of conscious capitalism. And John Mackey actually states that companies exercising conscious capitalism outperform their peers by more than 10 to 1, by 10.5 to 1. So not only does it feel good to make the world a better place, but it also is you actually benefit the most. So I'd like to ask the leaders in this room about making the world a better place. Do you feel that it's a mandatory part of your job, is your mandatory job responsibility to make the world a better place, or is it an optional one? Who thinks it's optional? One hand. Appreciate the honesty. 2 hands. 2 hands. I appreciate the honesty. How many feel that as leaders in IT or otherwise, it's our responsibility to make the world a better place? All right, we have a few undecided. We're going to try to pull you towards decided, especially if you're in IT, because we have some practical advice here in our presentation today about how a CIO how a CIO has so many stakeholders and so many people that can win or lose, in a transaction or in a relationship, and how CIOs can come up and create these scenarios for everybody to win. But why? I mean, it feels obvious. We want to make the world a better place. Why don't we? Well, we have 2 major issues, right? 2 major instincts that hold us back from doing that, right? The first one is fear, or the first one is greed. Greed basically says, I have a set of principles, and I always do this. I always try to make the world a better place. But this one time, it's this amazing opportunity. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity, and then I'll be back to to doing all the right things and making the world a better place. And that's what greed is about, right? So greed for executives is often constitutes itself in such behavior as technology-based decision making. Oh, there's this new technology. It really works amazingly well. We're going to get ahead of everybody, and we're going to dominate. You guys see that behavior, right? A lot of times, some executive comes from a conference and says, "We're going to do Workday. Let's do Workday. All the cool kids are doing Workday these days. Let's start that project, right?" Going big when size doesn't matter. A lot of times, let's grow by acquisitions. We're going to acquire all of our competitors. Similarly, market leadership. We're going to be a market leader, but for what purpose, right? For the purposes of taking over the world. That's not a great purpose. Results driven, but for a specific executive to be able to put on their resume that it was a $3 billion whatever. When it's egocentrically driven for specific executives' success and not necessarily for their company's success, and strategic. But then, when you think of strategy as military or sports, that's not really strategic. The business is different from military or sports. And then fear, right? And then fear is the other reason we might not act in a way that's in best interest for everyone around us. When we feel threatened, then we say, "Oh my God, no holds barred now. Now that my life or my job or my existence is threatened, drastic times call for drastic measures." And so for executives, this could constitute itself as cost cutting for the purposes of cost cutting, or problem solving. I'm a great problem solver. If you're a great problem solver, you could be there's always problems. You could solve problems for decades, right? How are you thinking strategically? How are you making the world a better place? But if you just box yourself into a problem solver, then that's definitely defensive play. Benchmarking against average performers is another way of justifying. Oh, yeah, I'm good. Look at the benchmarks. I'm good. I'm as good as average. Framework based, we're going to agile everything, or best practices, as you can see from the cartoon that you've probably I can see everyone chuckling about. Those. So the fear and greed are the reasons that oftentimes we miss an opportunity to make the world a better place. We're at the conference today. We're talking about AI, and this is a very good example, because the only two kinds of conversations happening about AI are either fear-based. It's going to take our jobs. It's going to. This is the end of the world, or it's a conversation about greed. Oh, let's take advantage of this and get ahead of the competition. Or if we're a large company, we have bigger budgets, we're going to invest more in AI, and we're going to annihilate the competition. Are you seeing that today? You guys hearing the dual dual way that this plays out, right? And so I've got a couple of practical examples of how Win for All can work in a technology space, and I'll dive right into those. The first one has to do with our client, a Carrier corporation. You guys may know they make air conditioners. So if you know, then they're a great innovative company. They're U.S. based. Their manufacturing is U.S. based. So when they issued this particular RFP, they issued a set of criteria for selecting a vendor. It was cost and project management skills, technical skills. They wanted to see an American company supporting American economy. They looked at the size, small versus large, and the track record with performance record with Carrier. And so my company is on the left with our ratings. and we were a finalist against this offshore firm, and that's their ratings. The choice is clear, right? As to who to pick, right? So what did they do? Do you know? Have you heard of the oblique strategies cards? So oblique strategies is a set of cards. I think there's 102 of them. They were invented, or they've been created by a couple of musicians, and they say the wackiest things. You're supposed to look at a card when your team or yourself is in a creative rut. If you're having a workshop and you're at an impasse, you pull out an oblique strategy card and it goes, and then you go, my God, there you go. The solution was right there, right? I have a deck of cards, of oblique cards. You see the picture of them right down there in the office. And we've only used one, ever. It's in the main conference room, but we've only used one. That one says, when given a choice, choose both. You like that, right? So what did Carrier do? They chose both. Right? And how did that work out? Yeah, they officially awarded the RFP to the larger company, but they actually got a smaller budget than we did. And they're just responsible for the technical piece, because that's where their expertise was. We ended up managing the project, and we ended up making more money on it, but we managed it on time, on budget, on scope. And that's the win for all scenario, because Carrier as a customer wins. Our company wins, the offshore company wins, the U.S. economy gets to keep as many jobs as possible. We get to keep our money here in the country as much as possible. Hopefully, somewhat inspiring. Hopefully helpful in creating a win for all mentality. Now let's talk about digital transformations. This is an IT transformation. You guys familiar with Welch's? Okay. Did you know that I live in Lincoln? Next town to me is Concord, and Concord is a town where Concord grape was actually invented. That's why Welch's is from Concord, Massachusetts. There's actually a patch that has a plaque describing that this is where the Concord grape comes from. So Welch's, right, is a co-op. Welch's is the opposite company to most companies. Most companies make a product and then they figure out what raw materials to use. Welch's is a co-op of farmers. The raw material is non-negotiable. It's the grapes. And then, what do you do with them? So it's sort of like an upside-down business where the raw materials are non-negotiable and the products are now up to innovation. They're a 150-year-old company. I think 150. Fabi? 150. Fabi worked there. And their new CEO joined, I want to say 4 years ago, has this transformational goal. We're not going to be a grape juice people. We're going to be an industry leader in food and beverage. And so he goes out, when he starts, he decides to bring on a new leadership team, brings on a new CIO, Steve Lemoyne, and says, and convinces him that we're going to transform this company. This is a really old company, but we're going to do things differently. Steve is a transformational CIO. He's poised to start this transformation, and it starts in IT, in enablement. And so Steve puts together this amazing $30 million transformational plan, takes it to the CEO, and says, "Here's an amazing plan. This is how we're going to transform." And the CEO says, But my wallet's empty. I have no money for you. The plan sounds awesome, but you have to find the money. I don't have the money. Steve says, well, that's not my expectation, but I can deal with it. Okay. This is a beautiful picture of Steve. He hails from Raleigh, North Carolina. And so the only commitment Steve asked for was to freeze the IT budget at the current year level. This was 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. Once that, and Steve runs IT like it's a business. And so once he froze the budget, he then drove the cost out. He restructured the vendor contracts, he canceled a bunch of projects, he started a few projects, he reorganized his department, right? And doing all of that, he improved the service quality from IT anyway. This year the IT is showing a profit, right? Because Steve is running it like a business and his budget is frozen. So now he can actually start the transformation, unfortunately, 3 years after he started, 2.5 after he started, but he can actually transform. And it gets even better because, with just one commitment to freeze the IT budget, he's starting to lead the rest of the business in a transformation, right? Because the operations and sales and all the other departments are seeing what he's doing, right? And they want to follow suit. They can now see that the vision of making this company a leader in food and beverage industry is possible if we just do what Steve does, what the CIO is doing, right? The snowball effect is happening, right? And this is where, this is another scenario where lots of people won. The employees won new skills and leadership opportunities because the department got restructured and lots of people got new opportunities. The business won as it's now positioned for a major transformation. The farmers, of course, win because they're poised to see more products made out of grape juice or grapes. The vendors that Steve hired are now poised to be a part of a transformation. And of course, the CIO wins because most CIOs and most C-level folks, of course, are after their legacy, right? And that's what Steve is after. I'm on a board of Boston SIM. I don't know if you know what SIM stands for. Society for Information. It used to be Society for Information Management. It's a club for IT execs, right? And I am on the board. Oh, sorry, the microphone. I'm on the board because for members in transition. So I help IT leaders that lost their jobs find the new ones. And so one of the executives that Steve let go came to me, and I hooked him up with the next job. He's actually learning new skills in a new place. So one might even say that even those who got let go won. They're learning new skills. Although that required some help from me. Okay. I hope this was also helpful in kind of changing your mindset about CIOs being able to create win-for-all scenarios. This is good? Great. So I mean, your question. If we got the sound going, I'd like to go back to the to just entertain you. I figured this was a good way to demonstrate what greed is all about, right? We all want to make the world a better place, but then when opportunities to do something for me come up, then it suddenly derails our best intentions. All right. So naturally, right, we want to do something different on Monday when we go back to work. I'm assuming everyone's taking the rest of the time. What? 10 minutes. 10 minutes is great. Hopefully you're taking the rest of the week off and just showing up on Monday. No, just kidding. All right, so when you go back to work, maybe it won't be Monday. What to do differently, right? So I'd like to take it into negotiation techniques, right? And negotiators talk about the different paths to finding a resolution to a conflict, and most of them would talk about the three major ways that the two parties see each other, right? So some approach a negotiation from a standpoint of a position. You're a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I have suddenly have a set of rules, and you have a set of rules, or a position might be this is mine, and the other person says no, this is mine, right? And those are positions. They're very hard to negotiate through. Compromise is another silly way of approaching a conflict. Let's split the item of interest in half. I mean, neither party is interested in a half of it, and not a very effective way to resolve a negotiation. Win-win is ultimately the best way because it's interest-based, right? It's very rare that the true interest is the subject of negotiation, right? And so pursuing the interests, if you're negotiating with your vendor, if you're negotiating with your customer, if you're negotiating anything, is to figure out what are the long-term or what are the end goals, right? What are the interests? And so I would recommend that us IT practitioners, IT executives, look for interests in any type of a relationship with all of our stakeholders. And we got many. Right? This is the IT stakeholders are on the left here. You got employees, you got the board, you got all these vendors, you got all sorts of people, right? And that's me on the left, on your right. And I got my competitors, and I've got the partners, and I got to deal with them. Like for example, competitors. Is a good example to work through. If we're on a project and we're a management consulting firm, we might have 3 people, 5 people managing a program that has 500 people on it, representing 5 or 6 other vendors, which in a way are competitors, and they don't all perform really great, and so it might be tempting to suddenly have 10 or 15 people or 100 people on this project by demonstrating that a competitor of ours is underperforming. That's never a case. That's never a case. If there are underperforming vendors, competitors to ours, we actually try to help them win. We try to help them clean up their act and deliver, because that's the only way our customer will win. And if the customer wins, then our competitors win and we win, right? And so so the mindset of everybody winning is important. I mean, we've got here at this conference, a CIO for an insurance company will talk to another CIO for an insurance company. They'll talk about best practices. They'll talk about what's working for you, what's working for me. You helping each other as humans, right? And in the end, it will all come back and create a winning scenario. So a lot of times you have to consider all of these stakeholders one by one with a hub and spoke win relationships, or sometimes there's multiple parties involved. So let's talk about some practical ideas, negotiating on interests and not based on position. We just talked about that. MBWA is near and dear to my heart, managed by walking around. I see a lot of IT executives sit in their office all day or sit on Zoom all day. The only way you learn about people's interests and their ideas and what they're seeing as the bright future is if you walk around the office. Extend trust, right? Organizations that report low trust from employees are actually organizations that don't trust their employees, right? So you got to give trust first, then you'll get trust back. Cut losses. If you have a relationship that's not working, you got to stop, and you have to share your interests. You have to demonstrate vulnerability, which is a great leadership skill. This is my interest. I actually would like to get promoted as a result of this project. Just say it out. Say it out loud, Or my ambition. Some of my employees in my company say my ambition is to open my own company. Okay, well let's work with you. Let's work on a talent development plan so that you can open a company when you're done working with us, right? So once you share your interests, then things become easier to work with. So here's your typical implementation. Your company has acquired a new piece of technology, and you've got all these stakeholders that we just listed, right? The CIO is in fear for a project failure. Their greed is, oh yeah, I'm going to if we succeed, then I'm going to increase my influence in the organization. The CFO is afraid of cost overruns. Yeah. Okay. But their greed is to get the best deal and negotiate every dollars. Business sponsor, right? Whoever sponsored the COO, whoever sponsored the investment in the new technology, fears a disruption to the business. Well, you guys in IT, you guys run that project. I'm not going to work with you, right? And then the greed is, I got it, is career enhancement. You see the fear and greed from every executive or from every party involved. And it's very hard if you're a CIO to make everybody happy if you approach the relationship from a standpoint of a position, right? So what happens in a typical scenario? In a typical scenario, CIO gets blamed for the issues that happen with the technology implementation. The CFO ends up having to approve a bigger budget, additional budget to fix whatever didn't work out. Business sponsor is upset with low quality of what got delivered. The project team is overworked and underpaid. I mean, you've seen that. The tech provider sneaks in new features and functions that you have to purchase from them for additional money. And solution integrator gets multiple change orders because that's how they make money, right? They won the race to the bottom. They offered the lowest price. That's how they've got your business, but the margin is so low that the only way they can actually make money is by booking change orders. But let's look at the true interest, right? And the reason I have the interchange here, right, of the highways is because if we made it a one traffic light intersection, then all these cars would be stuck because they'd all be fighting for one for the intersection. But we avoid the intersection because the interests of all these cars are not the intersection. It's their destination. The CIO wants for everyone to win. The CFO wants to see profitability. Business sponsor wants to see strategic advance. I mean, this is none of these actually play into what actually happens. And so what I'd like to talk about is the win-for-all approach. And the CIO manage by walking around and mediate for success. So we talked about mediation or negotiation techniques earlier in the presentation. The CFO needs to look beyond the numbers. So many CFOs, they flip to that contract to the bottom line and want that bottom line to be smaller. You got to look beyond the numbers. You have to look into characters and strategy. For a business sponsor, either commit the project or cancel it, right? Either you risk disrupting the business, or don't do the project. Don't purchase the technology. For the project team, project teams are often afraid to bring up or escalate risks or issues. You got to grow a pair. For a tech provider, form a symbiotic relationship, right, with the customer, with us, and that's their goal, and that's how they're going to benefit long term. And for solution integrator, success-based profitability. Right? So you can eliminate your change orders by basically signing a contract that says, if we go on time, on budget, on scope, you get a bonus of 5% or 10%. That way, their goal and your goal to go on budget, on scope, on time, right, is your goal, and you can make things happen. And that's my presentation. Hopefully, this is enough of practical advice for you to look for win-for-all solutions when you go back to the office. I hope this was helpful. All right, we have 30 seconds. Any questions? Okay.
We'll meet out here for sure. On behalf of the CIO Council, thank you very much. No pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.